My limited edition plush is still available, so check the link in the description if you want to get it before it's gone. Hey everybody, it's LavenderTowne. And for those of you who don't know, I went to high school and middle school in a small town in Idaho, and I thought it would be interesting to illustrate some of the crazier stories I had during my time there. So this first story is about electives. Now, for those of you who don't know, a lot of high schools work in the way that you get to pick your own electives. So there's like all kinds of art and like other non-core classes that you can sign up for. And I decided to go for home ec because mostly I thought that it looked really fun in a lot of the anime I was watching. So I ended up picking it over even like some of the art classes and stuff. And you end up putting in your submissions for your electives like in the middle of summer when there's still a few months before you actually have to go back to school. So I made sure to sign up early because I knew that some electives could sometimes fill up and then you couldn't get into them. And I put my like second and third choices. Obviously there were some like art classes and things that I had as my second and third choice. And then the rest of the summer went by without any thought about my elective classes. But when I came in on my first day, I noticed that my schedule had Woodshop on it instead of home ec, and I found out that they just put everyone who requested home ec into Woodshop because they realized a couple weeks before school started that they didn't have the funds to actually run a home ec class, so instead of telling anybody, they just put us all in Woodshop. So I was really depressed about this. I really didn't want to do woodshop. I wasn't really interested in carpentry or anything, but I tried to make the best of it, and I was like, oh, maybe we'll make some like cute birdhouse or something like that. So we go into this class, and our teacher is incredibly old, and he is basically sitting behind his desk playing solitaire, and he's like, you guys should go and get these saws. They were like extremely dull hand saws, and he was like, take these pieces of wood and put them right here and then just saw them and then come up to the desk when you're done. And I thought we were going to be making something, but after I sawed through my piece of wood, he just gave me another piece of wood, and it turns out that he was just having us saw through wood for no reason at all. I have no idea how this was allowed to be a class, but I got a bunch of blisters on my hands just sawing pieces of wood for literally no reason. This next story is about health class. Now, health class is something that I think almost everyone has to take. Sometimes they call it sex ed, but it's kind of like an important class. And so I was very nervous to go to this course. I was a pretty shy kid, but I didn't need to worry because our old man teacher who showed up that day, who looked suspiciously like the PE teacher, basically said, I know this is supposed to be a sex ed class, but I don't want to talk to you kids about sex ed, so I'm going to teach you boating safety instead. And everyone was like, I wasn't aware that was something a person could do, like, you were hired to teach one class and you're just going to teach us a different class. So the whole time in, this completely landlocked state of Idaho, he instead taught us about like life jackets and how to signal the Coast Guard if you're stuck in your boat. The weird part was I still like brought my health textbook that we were supposed to be learning from in my backpack every day, and we all had it like out on our desk, and then he would just put his own like printed out worksheets about boats and how not to drown. And I remember I was like working on this worksheet about how to properly use a flare so that you can light them if you're in the dark and stuck in a boat. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, how is this my health class? Like, how could this guy just be like, I'm embarrassed, so I'm not going to teach this class. I'm going to teach you about boats. Like, how is that a real thing that actually happened in my school? The even crazier part is that my science teacher, my biology teacher, actually found out that he wasn't teaching the class, and she got so mad that she did a whole segment in our science class about like the science of reproduction so that she could basically fill in the gaps for all the stuff that he was supposed to be teaching us and wasn't. And that class ended up being very informative and very graphic because it was through more of a scientific lens. Truthfully, we probably got a better education this way anyway, because judging by what I did see in the health textbook that we had, it seems like Idaho's curriculum is basically like, if you hold hands before marriage, you're gonna get herpes and die kind of content, so maybe it's better this way. Honestly, I wonder what we would have learned about in biology if our original health teacher had actually been doing his job. I guess I'll never know. Now, during Valentine's Day, our school did a thing where basically you could buy a carnation and have it delivered with a note to any student in the school. Now, this was a really cute idea. I didn't expect to get a carnation because I wasn't dating anyone at the time. In fact, I had recently, I don't know if broken up is the right word. I stopped dating a guy I had briefly been interested in. He was a senior and I was a couple grades under that. And I didn't end up feeling like I clicked with him. I thought it was all pretty copacetic, but I was surprised when I came into my desk and saw a carnation on it as well as a note. And I was like, oh, that's really cute. Oh my gosh, do I have a secret admirer or something? But then when I looked at the note, all it said on it with no name or anything was, "You'll regret this." So basically, the school had allowed somebody, but I assume the guy who I had recently broken things off with, the school had allowed him to purchase a carnation through the school program and write this note and have the school deliver it to me on my desk, unless he did the legwork for this himself. But usually with the carnations, it was they got delivered, I think, by one of the secretaries or something. I don't remember exactly how, but yeah, basically I got a threatening carnation letter, which I definitely didn't take seriously at the time. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so melodramatic. But thinking back on it now, I was like, I should have told somebody. That's so sketchy. Honestly, I should give the school the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they don't type out the notes. Maybe he did that himself and then they didn't look at the notes because maybe that's against people's privacy. But if I'm remembering it correctly, you actually had to pay in advance and then write down the note that you wanted with the flower on a little worksheet, spreadsheet thing, and then they would type it out and deliver it with your flower later. So that would mean that some secretary somewhere had typed out a threatening note for my estranged ex to deliver to my desk. What's even crazier is I only went out with him 3 times. We hadn't even kissed, so I don't know why he was so angry. But yeah, very, very disturbing story to think back on. Now, this last story is the worst one, and honestly, it's not very funny. I almost didn't even put it in here, but I feel like it's something that should be talked about because this should never have happened at a public school. Basically, in the middle of our history class, we were told that we were going on an impromptu class trip, which is not a thing that we ever really did. Usually if you were stepping one foot off of campus for even a moment, you had to get your parents' permission or whatever, and it was a whole thing. But for some reason, our history teacher decided to take us out of school across the street to a public building to listen to a speaker. This is really weird for a lot of different reasons, especially because we had speakers in class before and usually they just come into our classroom. But for this particular talk, we were supposed to leave. So we ended up going and already we were like, this is weird, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So we go into this building and the guy there he looks kind of familiar to me. And I realize that this is a private school guy, who basically is part of the local cult. That sounds harsh, but it really is. It is a religious group that is so extreme and super backwards and terrible in our town. And he basically started his little talk by saying that everything we knew about slavery was wrong. And you can probably assume where this was going. It was really, really upsetting. And honestly, I just can't believe that this really happened. He also believed in things like the prosperity gospel, which was this idea that if you're poor, it's because God decided that you're a worse person and you deserve to be poor. To give you some context on what kind of school this guy ran, a parent would have to sign a waiver before their kid was enrolled there, saying that the teachers at that school were allowed to physically punish or hit their children when they did something wrong at the school, which I just, that's so gross. I hate it. But ironically, going to this insane propaganda talk actually did teach me something really important, and that was that even people who I really like and trust, like my history teacher, I thought he was a good teacher and stuff, they can sometimes have some really dark stuff on the inside that maybe you don't see because it's not against you. My parents called the school to complain after I told them what happened, but that teacher who took us to this talk still works there, I'm pretty sure, so it must not have really had much of an impact. So those were some of the craziest stories from my high school experience. Tell me your craziest high school story, or middle school is also fine. School is a place where it seems like people can get away with almost anything, so I'm sure you guys have plenty of good stories like that. Thank you for watching till the end, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you to all of my patrons, including Abnormal Crap, Ambrose, Best Kaiju, Lion, Christopher, Clockwork Construct, Dark Jelly, Dr. Casket, Larry Louie, Emily Borcoing, Fabletell, Juliana Javis, Griffix, Hidden Squid, Ice Cream Pal, Ivan Rodriguez, JJJ, John Mosket, Joseph Copel, Lauren, Liliana Hammond, Maria Costa, Mr. Dr. Pants, Mia Lavali, Nicole Ludwak, Nicolette Queen, Nora Cornelison, Hugh Musgrove, Rainwater Pearls, Rune Raincrow, Snow White, Some Mediocre Artists, Sparky Plays, The Becky, Tom David Johansson, Trace Subaki, Violet Zirkelbach, Yaboyasti, and Yume Lily.